So to start with, I'll be presenting a small demo of Kubernetes as a service, and I would be showing the integration of few tools like Docker, integrated with Git, integrated with Circle CI, and deploying the application on a Kubernetes cluster, which is running as a managed Kubernetes cluster in a DigitalOcean. So I would be talking about the scaling of your applications with managed Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is something which is pretty famous, or a lot of people are adapting containers, right? Container technology, you would say, is quite famous these days. Everyone is trying to make cloud native applications. So Kubernetes is something which gives a lot of amount of features so that you can orchestrate and manage your containers in a pretty better way. So we would see how we can attain a complete DevOps lifecycle, the CI, integration, build, deployment, using all these tools, integrate them together and deploy in Kubernetes cluster. So to start with my introduction, I have been working for around 16 plus years. I started as a C++ developer around 16 years back, and slowly moved to OpenStack, DevOps, different various other clouds, and trying to do a lot of containerization type of projects, and trying to containerize tools, because a lot of tools are there in the market which have really working well with containerization tools or any of the clouds. So major focus is on open source technologies which work in every other cloud as well. So agenda for today is we would see what exactly are the benefits of the Kubernetes one, deploy a scalable application on our Kubernetes cluster, automate the continuous integration with GitHub. So I would check in my code and the GitHub would integrate my code over there. And then would we have a continuous deployment using Circle CI. So Circle CI is a tool which is normally used for integration. There are a lot of tools there in the market. You have Spinnaker, you have Circle CI, you have Jenkins. They are good for one of the things, but they do many other things as well. So you might be knowing Circle CI for continuous integration. I would show a demo of continuous deployment using Circle CI. And I would also show one of the features of our DigitalOcean's Kubernetes cluster is the auto scaling of the cluster. So let's see what exactly is a CI/CD. When we are talking about continuous integration and deployment, why that things comes into picture is very important, because these days the time to market is very important. We always look for there is a competition in the market. You got to be much before with a good feature than your competitors, right? So integration, which used to happen every 1 month normally, that is like a daily cycle these days. Every day when the developer is leaving the office, they normally check in their code, that gets integrated, a build is run. So that deployment process is also done on a daily basis on the test environment or the QA environment or the sanity environment, so that we know what exactly the code which are getting delivered, they are not affecting any other features which are already running, and they are good to go, right? So the CI/CD pipeline itself is very good and beneficial in case we want to do the things on a very frequent basis, because if we are trying to do that manually, it would take a lot of effort and time as well. So let's see how would our CI/CD pipeline exactly look, which we would try and deploy. So we would have an engineer who would be deploying cluster. We would have another engineer who would be checking their code. These are the components. So the guy is writing the code, the Docker file, the normal application code, and the code is pushed to Git. Git integrates the code. So these days, if we are talking about infrastructure as a code or any other tool, let it be a Kubernetes YAML file, that also gets checked into the code integration tools. Let it be a Docker file which prepares the image for the containers, that also gets checked in. And even the application code gets checked in. Here I'm giving a sample that the person is sitting and preparing a Docker file, which would help us prepare the images. So that gets pushed. As soon as the code is pushed, an automatic trigger for the build would happen. And Circle CI is a tool which would build and deploy both. So we would do Circle CI build, And what would happen internally, we have to make an image so that it can run as a container. So obviously, Circle CI would take help of any containerization tool like Docker and prepare the image of that application so that it can be deployed in any of the environments. Let it be as a standalone container, or let it be as running in any of the Kubernetes cluster in cloud or on-prem. Then once the build is done, that means we have a ready image that is pushed to the registry, which is the Docker Hub. We have, DigitalOcean has launched the container registry yesterday in the KubeConf. So till that point, I had prepared the presentation. Container registry was not available. So I've used the generic open registry, which is the hub.docker.com. And once that is done, as soon as the image is pushed, our tool understands that there is a new image available and I need to deploy the newer version of the application. Like for example, I was running version 1 of the application. Now version 2 of the application should start running. So automated deployment would happen, and my pods or containers in the Docker terms when we say, and in Kubernetes terms, we name it as pods because there is a wrapper on the containers. So that pod gets created. If you want to scale, you can scale. And this exactly is the complete flow I would be taking you through. We would have the cluster. I have a cluster up and running. I'll show you that. We would push in the code, a build would trigger, we would push in the image, and we would deploy that in our Kubernetes cluster. So how do we do this? We would be creating our DigitalOcean cluster. We would be creating a local Git repository using Git commands. We would be creating a service account. So I'll focus on these things, why exactly a service account is needed. Like for example, I have my cluster, and I, as a admin in the cluster, can run any of the commands. I can trigger application creation, pod creation, and all. But when Docker image is pushed in hub.docker.com, automatically, if the deployment has to happen, someone has to have the authority to build a pod out of the newer image, right? So for that, when you're authenticating as a user, you're using password-based authentication, or you're using key-based authentication when you're logging. Kubernetes has role-based access authentication mechanism, right? RBAC. Same way for service-to-service communication, authentication happens via service account. That's the reason the name is service account. That means we are creating a role on the cluster which would have the authority to deploy application, and that would get a trigger from Circle CI. So we will create a service account. We would create a role on the cluster level, like a role, say admin role, which can deploy application, which can delete application, which can scale application. And there are different types of resources in Kubernetes which can be created. So we would assign role having some privileges, right? So that role is the one which has the name of the role, and it has the privileges what is had. And when you bind a user to a role, that is the role binding. Here we would be binding the service account to the role so that the service account has the authority to run those commands on our behalf. And then we would be creating a sample application and then creating a Kubernetes deployment. Deployment is a kind of resource that can be created on Kubernetes. So there are different kinds of resources. Like for example, if you want a ever-running application to be there, like for example, if I am running digitalocean.com, I don't want that website to go down, right? I want that to be ever-running. So that type of services or that type of applications are created as deployment. In case you people would have run jobs, cron jobs and all, right? So in case I want to issue some tasks, or I want to do a job which is like backing up at every 9 p.m. in the night, that would be created as kind job. If I have any stateful applications, I would create them as kind stateful set. So we are trying to create a web server type of application. That's the reason we would be deploying it as kind deployment. And we would have a service. Important part with containers is containers gives you a lot of benefit when compared to virtual machines, but their IP addresses are not static. Their memory is not persistent. So we have ephemeral storage. That's the reason we have to map a persistent storage, because the IP address is dynamic. If reboot happens or the container is killed, the IP address would change. So we need a constant resource which can lead us to the application pods or the containers, right? So service is the one which helps us in doing that. We would be creating that as well. We would configure our Circle CI. We would be making a project. We would make a job. A complete workflow would be stitched. And then we would deploy that. An automated deployment would happen as soon as you push your code. So let's see that. And at the end, I would also demo in case we are deploying n number of pods of the same application. Like, for example, everyone uses Ola, Uber type of application today, right, to book the cabs. In the evening, when people are going back from the office, you would see a lot of traffic on their servers, and they auto-scale automatically, right? So on demand, if resources are needed, they would scale. So my application is running inside a container, which is wrapped up with a pod. My application demand or the traffic has increased, it would scale up. But in case my cluster doesn't have that much of capacity to host those many pods, my cluster should also scale up, right? So that cluster auto scaling also I would be showing up. So the basic building blocks here would be setting up a highly available cluster, creating a GitHub account and a repo creation. So I have already done few of the things, because obviously 40 minutes is not suffice to do all the steps, right? So I have created a Kubernetes cluster. I'll take you through that. Okay. So I have a cluster up and running. So to create a cluster, not many things are needed. You can go here to the drop down, say create cluster, and you can provide what sort of cluster you want to create. I want to have 2 nodes. I want to have 3 nodes. I want to have 4 nodes. Depending on the resource utilization of your applications, you can judge how much of cluster size, what would be the capacity. In the beginning, you're choosing the version of it. You are choosing in which region you want to host. You want to host depending on the user base and all that. You would select the region in which you want to host. You would select the networking type. And the important part comes here, the capacity planning of your cluster. You can have multiple node pools in your cluster. And in one node pool, the type of nodes are alike. It would be a homogeneous type of nodes in one of the pools, but I can have multiple pools. Like, for example, I can have a CPU optimized nodes, 2 of the nodes in one pool, mem optimized type of nodes in pool number 2, and then standard type of nodes in pool number 3. If my application actually needs mem optimized type of node to execute or run, I would, there are different ways of scheduling it. You would have the scheduling definitions written in your pod YAML and all that. You can define where exactly you want to host this application. So that way you choose or plan the capacity of your cluster. It would give you an estimated cost for that. You can name your cluster. You can even tag your cluster. Tagging is easier in DigitalOcean things, because with the tagging, you can even apply the IP table or the firewall rules. If I have tagged 2 machines as Kubernetes cluster worker nodes, I can apply the same type of rules in the firewall section by just checking on the tag saying that this particular rule is applied to this tag. And then you're selecting a project. The project is just to segregate the different type of workloads we are running. In case I want a dev environment, test environment, or team 1, team 2, any type of segregation. And you hit on create cluster. It normally takes around 10 to 12 minutes, depends on the number of capacity. In case you are spinning up a 10-node cluster, obviously it will take a longer amount of time. But if you're spinning up a 3 to 4-node cluster, it should come up in 10 to 12 minutes. It would be bringing up the nodes. It would put operating system on that, put Docker, and then put the Kubernetes. It would, in the backend, it is using kubeadm, and it would join all the worker nodes to the master node and form the cluster. You can even see the worker nodes which are running as a part of the cluster in these droplet section as well. So these 2 are the nodes which are running as the Kubernetes cluster at the Kubernetes cluster backend. So here in the cluster section, this would show us the list of information like what is my cluster capacity and whatever we had chosen, that part, plus you can see the node configuration. I have a single pool at this point of time, and my pool has 2 nodes. And I was mentioning about the scaling of the cluster, right? I can define over here what exactly I want to scale up to. It's not that I'm saying that on demand you scale my cluster and you scale till 100. End of the day, DigitalOcean would be charging for that running worker nodes, right? So you would give an estimate of the upper threshold and the lower threshold as well. Minimum start with 1, and when you scale up, you scale till 2 or scale till 10, so that you're aware exactly how many nodes would be the maximum running at any point of time. And you can get an estimated cost as well along with that. You can, at any point of time, delete or recycle your nodes in the cluster as well. You want to add a new type of pool later, you can do that. And few other actions like setting up some configurations for monitoring and all that also can be done. So these are the few other things which we can do from the command line web console itself. So let me take you to the command line. What I have done over here is I have run the cluster. So the command to list how many nodes are running in the cluster is kubectl get nodes. I am what I showed on the web console that I'm trying to see from the command line. There are 2 nodes running in this cluster. And at this point of time, if you want to see what all things are running, like deployment is running, okay, pods are running, any services are created, you can just issue the command get all. It will list all the resource types which are being hosted on this particular cluster. So I am running, these many number of pods are running, and these many number of services are running at this point of time, and these pods are part of this deployment. The advantages of having a deployment is like a controller. If I just run a pod, at any point of time, if the pod dies, no one is there to auto restart or auto control the number of replicas of that pod running. Like I mentioned that I want to run digitalocean.com, right? If the server is not up and running, you try to open the website, it would not work. And then it would show 404 error, right? So what I'll do, I'll run it as part of deployment. I'll say at any point of time, at least one replica of that should be running. So deployment makes sure that one instance of digitalocean.com is up and running at any point of time. In case that goes down, it will immediately bring up the other one. And the beauty with containers, it comes in milliseconds, right? So you would not be able to judge that. It would automatically, immediately come up. And I have an application called as Hello, which is having 2 replicas. You can see here, 2 replicas are expected, 2 are up and running. And these are the 2 pods which are part of that deployment. And deployment takes the help of replica sets to roll out the newer versions. And there is another component called as horizontal pod autoscaler, which is running, which will help us to scale automatically. So this is at present what looks in my cluster. Let me check my code over here. So I have a Docker file using which I have prepared an image and pushed that image to hub.docker.com. Let's just see the Docker file, what exactly it has. It's a simple Nginx. It has started with Nginx. So when we say from, it is a base image with it starts with, right? So it would have either Ubuntu or any operating system's base layer plus Nginx 1.14. And on top of it, I am pushing just a customized index.html so that I can get the view of my web page the way I want. And I'm pushing this index.html. I'm just saying Kubernetes Tide 2019. And this will help us to prepare an image if I do a Docker build. And I'll not manually do a Docker build, rather Circle CI would do a Docker build, right? So I have few of the scripts. Before to that, let me go to the Kube folder and show you the deployment file. This is the deployment file. This is how it looks. The kind says the type of resource you want to create, ever-ending type of resources, which expect at least one replica to be up and running at any point of time, and it expects a controller to be created so that you can automatically scale or automatically roll out newer versions, roll back to a previous version. Deployment gives us all these features. So here you are seeing there is replicas as 2. That means I would say that at any point of time, at least keep 2 replicas of this application up and running. And I am taking up the image. And the important part over here is this. Whenever you prepare an image, it would tag it as latest if you don't give any tag in Docker. So I am tagging it with a variable, which I'm setting on the environment. And whenever a new build is done by Circle CI, the latest tag is mapped to this. So whatever is the tag, that would be fed in here. And this is the file which is actually running the deployment. So what would happen, as soon as this tag version changes, it will try deploying a newer version of the application. And I have a container inside the pod running, which is listening on port number 80. So that means how it is on my cluster, there is a node. My packet would come to that. If someone is trying to access digitalocean.com, they would land on the node. From that node, it would be routed to the pod, and then it goes inside the container, right? So containers have the port numbers, IP address is assigned to the pod normally. So my container says I am within this pod and I'm listening at port number 80. And also I have a service file. As I mentioned, my pod's IP address or the container's IP address is not static, it's dynamic. I'm creating a service which would lead me to go there. So whenever the packet is coming, it's not going directly to the container, rather it's going to the service, and service backend is the pod. So this is how the file looks like. And every time in Kubernetes, we have to keep an eye on this, what type of kind, that type of resource you create. So this is the complete Kubernetes level of things. What I'll do, I'll change the index.html file. And let me say Mumbai. And I would push this code now, and I'll see that the build would happen, right? So let's go to our web console and see what exactly we have configured in our. This is my hub.docker.com. And this is the image name. So one time when you're pushing the image, first time it gets created. Next time when I start pushing the delta of it, it keeps tagging on top of it, right? So today in the morning, like 3 hours back, I was just trying to test it. So I have got fewer other versions as well. And it has these many versions of the image of that particular application. Let's go to Circle CI. Circle CI, I have created projects using add project. So my project name is DigitalOcean Kubernetes Deployment. And inside that it is having integration with Git. So what happens, I can import the complete repo of that Git into this, and it understands it as a project. So the branching in Git is master branching, and you can merge out to different, you can branch out to different branches. So this is that master branch of my Git, which is showing up here, okay? And these are the builds which have succeeded, passed, and all that. If I would have had many more branches, I could have listed those branches as well. So if you want to see what has happened last time, you can go, actually, these are the steps which gets executed. It will spin up an environment. It needs some machine to do a Docker build, right? It would be running Docker in somewhere, doing a Docker build and all, right? So it will check out your code. It would have a Git. It would do a Git checkout. It will take the code, it will do a Docker build, then it would deploy that as well, right? So all these are the ones. So it is spinning up a Docker engine machine somewhere, doing a Docker build, pushing the image to Docker, how we done from the command line as Docker push. This would do on our behalf. And here is the command where it would substitute that environment variable, the tagging of the image, right? That gets substituted. This is a Linux command which does that. And we would deploy the code. So this is our Circle CI one. And this particular page was running earlier. If I refresh that, it is still serving the same old index.html. And now if I do a git push, it should deploy the newer applications. So let's go here. So at this point of time, because I had changed the file to 2 replicas after doing this, that 2 replica changes is not pushed actually. It's not applied to that. That's the reason only 1 replica is up and running. How can you see the resources over here? You can even go and check get deployment. Here deployment would say the expectation and what is the present state of the cluster. So it expects only one replica of sample application to be up and running, and one is up and running at this point of time. Okay, so I'll do a git add, I'll do git commit, and I'll do a git push. So as soon as you do git push, let's switch back to our Circle CI. Just refresh this page. So here you're seeing it's queued. Now it is bringing up that machine. It started running. It's fetching our code. It would do a build and all. You can immediately click on that. You can see what exactly it is doing. It is pulling up. It is doing a Docker build. Here you see this is the exact command which it is building. Docker build -t is the command. That's exactly it is doing. So this would actually go and deploy the application. So let's go back quickly to our cluster and do kubectl get pods. So what would happen when we have a deployment and deployment's image is changed from version 1 to version 2? Deployment has that beauty of waiting for 60-second default timer. It will switch the traffic from version 1 to version 2 with a khatak. It's automatic switching. It's like a blue and a green deployment. At no point of time, the customers are seeing blue and green both. Everyone is seeing either Kubernetes Tide 2019, and immediately everyone would start seeing Kubernetes Tide Mumbai 2019. So here you're seeing the pods should be up and running. It is containers creating, and newer version of the pod would have come. So this is the old running pod. If you try and compare the number, these are the 2 new pods which have come and running, right? So now it is what is expected. My /kubes folder, which had the deployment file and the service file, that also got checked in. My index.html, which is my application code, that has also checked in. So index.html had an index.html change with the addition of Mumbai, and deployment file had a change with replicas too. So now it understood you have to pick up the new image and deploy 2 replicas of that application, and it has done that. So let's go and check here. Here it would be showing that the build is success and the deployment has happened. And here you would see the deployment has really happened. The 2 replicas are up and running. And let's go and refresh this page. It has the newer application deployed. With deployment, you can roll back to the previous histories as well. Deployment has rollback commands, rollout, undo, rollout history. You can check the histories as well. You can say rollout history of this particular deployment. It will show you how many versions it has gone. By default, only 2 back versions or the last 2 versions are shown, but it has the capacity of saving last 50 versions. And you have to give the limit how much it can show. Like for example, I am a developer who is running version 10 at this point of time, and in my customer's site, it is just version 2 which is running, and they are facing an issue. And someone says, Mamta, you got to test version 2, it has blah, blah, blah. So what I would do, I would just roll back from version 10 to version 2 in one switch. And my older containers are removed and newer containers are up and running. So first the newer, first newer containers will come up and running. Once they are stable, then only it goes back and deletes the older set of containers, right? So that is being done over here. Few other things which I can show is I can scale so that my cluster would scale up now, right? So 2 ways of doing it. Either you scale manually using kubectl scale command, which would scale any deployment or replica set or any one which has the parameter of replica, which you can do that. So kubectl scale, what do you want to scale is important. I want to scale the deployment. I think my deployment name is this. So let's see. Okay, sorry, I want to give -- replicas. I'm running 2, I want to run 5. So what has happened now, deployment would understand that it has to have 5 replicas of this particular pod up and running at any point of time. So here you're seeing 3 out of 5 are up and running, but 5 is what is expected. At this point of time, 3 is available. I immediately ran that, so it would not have created those 2 containers, but now it has done. Now 5 is expected, 5 is up and running, and I have scaled from 2 to 5 with a single command. Same way, if you want to scale down, just change. I want to make it 100, you can make it 100. So what would happen now? The capacity of the cluster is just 2 nodes. If my cluster's capacity is to host 50 or 60 number of pods, depending on the capacity of the pods. In pods also, you can specify these particular containers, how much of resources are needed, right? You can limit the CPU, you can limit the memory inside the container. So you would be asking for that much of resource. Now I'm saying scale to 100. Let's see what exactly this shows. Do we have the resources for that? Maybe yes, maybe not, we don't know. So let's go and check our Kubernetes cluster. Containers are in creating state because if resources are not available, it can't host it in any of the nodes, right? So what happens, because this is a managed Kubernetes, you don't own the master node. Master node is owned by DigitalOcean. They would be having the master node, which actually runs the Kubernetes scheduler, which schedules these pods on their decided nodes. So because Kubernetes scheduler is not with you, you can't go and check those things on the command line stuff. Rather, we would have to see on this particular console. So here, you would have few running and few are still in creating. I want to see what exactly is happening. You can do kubectl get events. It will show me the events on the cluster. What all events on the cluster is happening. But important point here, it's not in a sorted way. It's not according to the timestamp, okay? You would have to sort it. So somewhere down the lane, if there is a network cluster capacity crunch, it would say that it doesn't have that much of network cluster capacity to launch these many pods. So let's see how much. Okay, it has not scaled. Let me scale to some bigger number, say 500 or 1,000 maybe. And what would happen? It would take some time for the pods to be up and running. It will go to pending state because at that point of time, resources are not there. It needs one more node to be added to the cluster so that it can host them. But Kubernetes scheduler is intelligent enough. Once you have posted a job to it saying that this many pods have to be up and running, it remembers that as soon as the resources are available, it would create those pods and they would be up and running. So my service is not hit because at least 5, 10, 15, 20, how many are in running state, they are running and they are serving the traffic. You are able to see the website. The only that few of the pods which have scaled, they would take, because in turn it is going, it's not container, right? It is a virtual machine which will come up. It will have, again, operating system, Docker, Kubernetes, cluster joining, all those things have to happen at the back end, and then the cluster joining would happen and it can host a pod on it, right? So let's see if the node scaling has happened. We would refresh this. What was the capacity I had mentioned? I can go maximum to 3 as well. So now, because this is running, I think one more, you see this? One more node is getting added because I don't have sufficient resource. This node is getting added up. And now what would happen if slowly, like now traffic is high, and then this traffic goes down at some point of time, it will scale down the nodes as well. The only control you don't have is you can't define the parameters on which to scale up and scale down. We are taking the decision on your behalf. And we normally have 80-85% of overload on your machines, we would scale up. So this is scaling of the cluster on demand, right? So this node will come up, it would be added over here, and then you would start seeing that node in this list and it would show up there. Now that node is just coming up. It has not installed Kubernetes and all, the join has not happened. That's the reason it is not getting listed in the Kubernetes cluster yet, okay? So I did a cluster setup. I created the local Git. I've created the service account, the role binding. I'll show you that as well. I have some amount of time, and the application deployment and all that. We saw the Circle CI and we saw the automated deployment and the on-demand stuff. So these are the building blocks: the cluster bring up, the GitHub account creation, the repo creation, It's simple, right? Git init and all those things I've done. I've not done anything much. Git is pretty simple. I've created a service account. So let me show you what exactly is the service account. So any of the resource in Kubernetes, you can list as, kubectl. Get SA is the service account. I should have a service account named CI/CD. I want to list the details of that. You can see you can do a describe of any of the resource. It will show you the description of that particular resource. This is created with that particular name. It has a kind of service account. And who is accessing this? Let's see that. You can get the role. So you would have a CI/CD role. Let's describe. So this role says what all things I can do. I can do anything. The verb is the action. I can do anything on cron jobs, deployment jobs, replica set services. This is defined in the role. And where is the binding? So let's go and check the role binding. So I'm saying this role has this much of authorities, this much of privileges to do. But who exactly is tied up to this role? Let's see that. So service account, CI/CD is tied up to this particular role. So service account is having the authority to do all these things. And that service account is configured at Circle CI. In Circle CI, you have to configure some of the environment variables on the project level. You would be even, because it is pushing the image on my behalf to Docker Hub, I've given my Docker Hub's user ID, password. I have given my GitHub accounts credentials so that it can pull the code. So all these things are configured so that it can take the code, build the code, and deploy the code. Okay? So I've done all these things, created a Circle CI project, created a job, did the automated push to the Docker Hub, did an automated deployment, and on-demand scaling of the cluster. So demo was there. That's all from my side today. That's my Twitter handle, and that's my website in case you have any queries or anyone has any question at this point of time as well. I would love to answer that.